Good afternoon. My name is Susan McGlory Michael, and I am here with you for Women's Wealth, The Middle Way. And it's a show that basically answers your questions about work, money, and most importantly, family. And I'm here today with Carol Ann. I'm the CEO of Glen, and Carol Ann Fernandez.
I'm the COO of Glen, and I head up our financial planning and 401k defense.
And in case you wouldn't have guessed, we are mother and daughter. And I'm sort of smiling on today's topic because the last time Carol Ann and I did one of these, we were on my couch in my living room, and we were talking about women and work. And up in the background upstairs, Carol Ann had recently had a baby, my granddaughter, beautiful Anne. And she was upstairs fussing it, and we knew that she needed to go to sleep. What we didn't know while we were recording as women who were working, that you could hear the baby in the background. So I think it's ironic. The topic today is, now that the pandemic is coming to an end and many of us are going back to work or considering how we're going to go back to work, what does that mean for us? We know there's a lot of optimism out there, a lot. And I have a quote here I even wrote down from the Microsoft CEO. And basically they stated that we have seen in 2 years, actually in just 2 months, 2 years worth of digital progress on how we can sort of work from home and we can make it work. It's been a real transformation for all of us, I think. And some of us find this as a real positive, especially around we as women and our ability to work from home. But as a mom who raised 4 children, I was sort of a real advocate of this WebEx, because I think that we want to build our companies, or we want to grow our careers, and also maintain the mom. And so how does this pandemic and what we've learned from it sort of accept, how do we do this? How do we begin to say, I can balance both, but maybe I don't want to commute an hour and a half to 2 hours on the train into a city, a local city, or maybe I don't want to have to fight the traffic in a car. I can be much more effective even if I didn't have to go in every day. So almost a hybrid. And so we thought, let's talk about that today. Let's talk about maybe what have we learned in life. Events happen, creates change. And then I think the key, especially today, that we're going to talk about is, what can we leverage the good? And then also, how can we look at it? Everything's not black and white. Life is full of gray. And so we want to talk about a large majority, actually 82% of the workforce and executives tend to say they would be willing to let some of their employees work some of the time remote, at least, partly, when they've done this survey. But there was actually a Gardner survey that said 47% say that they will allow their employees to work partially remotely. And I think that's sort of hopeful for we as women who have children, or even men who you have dual people working and you want to share that. As you know, Carol Ann's husband's trying to get through residency. My son's wife's trying to get through residency. Those are long hours, and yet they also have careers. So you have 2 people that have careers. And the number one thing I think for most of moms is we want to be mom. And so when we say our motto in our firm is faith, family, and firm, and faith not being a religion, it's more like something greater than ourselves. But family is second on purpose, because we really feel like if you need to take care of someone elder or you need to help children, that's key. And then firm, we always put last, because we believe if the first 2 aren't healthy, your firm's not. And so that's why we're kind of passionate about talking about what has the pandemic taught us, and what as women do we need to sort of know. But couples who are equally sharing this kind of family responsibility than they did before in the pandemic. Maybe Carol Ann, you kind of can jump in a little bit, because you are in the thick of it. I'm sort of out of that, so I should probably let the expert talk a little bit about the ability to work remotely and what that means.
Yeah, I don't think I'm an expert by any means, but I mean, I think there's 2 sides that we look at it. On the business side, the remote has helped businesses be able to now recruit employees geographically much wider than they ever could. I mean, we're located in the Princeton area, but essentially you could have workers who are in Texas, in Florida, in California, in a way that you probably couldn't before due to the technology, as you're saying. And then as a individual, not on the business side, it also helps, right? Because if you do have to move because of a spouse, or if you want to go to a certain place because of kids' school or whatever it is, you may have more options of jobs than you did before. And a lot of them, as you said, are willing to let you work from home a little bit. And I think as women, that's huge, even if it's leaving work a little bit earlier and being able to work in the afternoon from home, or taking a day or two where you're home, even if with a babysitter or with daycare, whatever it is, in a way that wasn't accepted as widely as it is now.
And I also think that we are hearing a lot out there where they say women, women, and women. But, I had one daughter and 3 sons. And I will say that my sons who have children have said they didn't realize how much they missed with commuting. They didn't realize how enhanced their marriages are now that, yes, they can get up at 6 o'clock, maybe go into their office at home and work. But at 4 o'clock, they often can jump out and play with the kids for a while, help with dinner, help with baths, read bedtime stories. And our son, who has a pretty high-powered job with long hours that he would work, often says he goes back into his office. And interestingly, his wife is more than willing to let him work, a little extra in the evening, because he's not coming in at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night. And so he realizes that he will go back into the workforce, but he does question, is it really necessary that he's there every day? And I think that's critical for all of us. And when you have both men and women questioning, I think that the larger institutions are going to have to begin that. And now we're smaller industries and we're all maybe business owners, but we do need to be very cognizant and to watch what the larger industries are doing, because if they do get on board, that will only help us. The other thing I think is, as business owners, we also enhance if we have a quality workforce that we are willing to hear that they do need to be flexible. I actually think we're going to have better and be more attractive as businesses. But the one thing I did want to talk about, I'm going to ask you a question. I'll put you on the spot here. There's no baby crying in the background, so no excuse. But should we bring workers back into the office after the pandemic? And when we do, we say there's no right or wrong answer. And most of us are seeing that we are all coming back, especially with shots. So with that question, but it varies, because we were talking early this morning, and just within our own company, there are really different types of personalities. And I actually Googled it, because after we were having the conversation, I said, let me just pull it up and see. And there was a MAC group, and they did a study in which they said, they're like the thriving, I think they broke them down to 4, right? They had the thriving employees, the hopeful employees, and the other one I'll look, the discouraged employees and the trapped employees. And we kind of all, as business owners, and also if we're just employees, right? We know who they are, because the thriving employee said, I've always been an introvert. I love my house. I love getting up with my slippers. I'm okay with this, and I can live with this forever. Okay, yeah. So that's sort of that employee is going to thrive 100% remotely. And we have to kind of nudge them back in for those couple of days we need them, or for the meetings. And then you have the hopeful employee, and that employee they're struggling a little bit with that, and they're really hopeful that maybe we bring them back, so that, they're maybe only 25%, but they're okay. They're doing okay, but they do like the interaction. The discouraged employee, though, we really have to worry about, because they tend to be that extrovert, and they were kind of not, and we've had a couple, right, that we experienced, they're not really mentally feeling great about not getting out, not working out, not eating lunch with their employees. And then you have that 32% that they say are really, they're extroverts. They're 100%. We know them. And actually, for some business owners, they're usually our sales force or our visionary for the company. They are biting at the bit, because actually the creativity and their stimulus and their ability to give back is when they are around that table bantering and thinking and coming up with new ideas. And so that's more the kind
I think
of
it has to do with extrovert and introvert, but it also has to do with how you structured it. Like, some people love this idea that they get up and there's not as much structure maybe, and they don't leave the house. Other people, unless they're getting up at the same time and going to the office and having those set meetings in a conference room, really feel lost. And I think as business owners, it's really challenging, because you have to balance which employees can do what. And there's also, I've heard from a lot of business owners, depending on your business, some employees that have to be back in and some that don't. So then you may be saying to half your employees, you can stay home, and the other half you can. And people get very upset about that, depending on what side they want to be in. So
I agree with you. I also think as business owners, we should be having this conversation. We should be talking to each other about it, because I think by saying, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And also hearing maybe some of the potholes that they're hitting and some of the adversity they're hearing, by comparing notes and saying, what can we do society-wise, business leader-wise to make this easier and better? The one thing I will say is creativity. A lot of times, many people gave up their workspace or downsized their workspace, and now they're saying, for cost savings, we might not have to do all that. And I think that's huge for business owners, especially young people or people that maybe went in semi-retirement and said, I want to try this business. If they can share space or find space at a very low cost or do it from home, I actually think economically and for our environment, here's the finance people coming out again, but you have to always look at that. I think it might help. But there's also the one thing, Carol, I know that you're involved for the company working with our HR team. Yeah. Maybe you want to talk about the HR, because we have talked about that too. And as business owners, I think we have to be cognizant on that to make sure that we're staying very focused on what we're supposed to be doing as business owners.
Yeah, and I think that's been the challenging part through the whole pandemic, right? Is what are the HR roles? It's obviously not been very clear, black and white, on when people can come back, what their protocols could be. But I think everyone says whatever you decide and whatever you do, it needs to be in your HR policies, and you need to be consistent. I think that's the biggest thing, and where business owners will get themselves in trouble is when they just throw something out there and they don't consistently have an actual rule or anything in the book on how it works, especially if you're doing half at home, half in the office and things like that. So I think that's definitely important. And then I think going back to the women thing a little bit, asking your HR person, can I do the 2 days at home, or can I keep this process, or this is really working? And every business owner knows which employees have really thrived and which haven't. But assuming you're someone who's been able to get your work done, I do think there's a lot of HR opportunities to allow your workers to work even harder and give you even more in their time.
I also think when you're talking about that, the one thing I think as women that we don't do enough is ask. If you have a desire and you know that you can be a real contributor to your firm, if you don't ask, don't assume the employer should know what you want. I think it's when we have to speak up more and ask and make sure that it shouldn't affect your pay. If you're getting the job done, you should be rewarded for your effort, whether you're in the office or not in the office. And we understand that every company is different. There are companies that it is critical that you are there. For example, with us, we are essential business even through the pandemic, and we had to have some people in at all times. But with that being said, we looked at it and said, what do we really need? What is the minimum? And how do we respect their comfort level? And it actually worked out when we turned it around and didn't tell them what to do, but we actually talked about what we as a company wanted to do. And I think that's where the Faith Family Firm comes in. Where does that fit in with our mission statement? If we really say we care, then how did we do that? And actually we thrived through it, and we worked remotely most of the time.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a lot of businesses where there's different setups, right, based on who's thriving and who's not. But essentially, it comes down to figuring out what fits best for your business and just talking to your employees. A lot of employees have left throughout the pandemic, have changed jobs, have been looking for new opportunities in ways that they weren't before. So that can be a great advantage for your business, right? There's a lot of opportunities to maybe hire some people, but you're hearing a lot of business owners also say, I can't find enough people. So this is a time where finding that structure. So maybe you are geographically have never had someone outside of your state where you say, you know what, I'm going to go hire that person and try it out.
I have read that where they think that there's a vast amount of talent, especially hiring. Some of the larger companies are saying you have to come back. There is no choice. And some of the real talent is saying, but I do have a choice. I have a personal choice. And as a result, they're looking elsewhere. And some of the talent is going to the competition. So I think as business owners, we have to be aware of that we have to be a little more flexible with things. and how they do that. But I would say whether you decide, whatever you decide, there's never a right or wrong. You have to look into your hearts, as we always say, right, and make the right decision for you. And maybe as a more seasoned business owner, you need to ask for opinions on those in your firm that are experiencing children. Because if you're not in the thick of it, we think we have an appreciation, but we don't unless we live it. And a month or so ago, I actually babysat for my son and daughter-in-law when they had some time off and they went skiing. And after a week of that baby and trying to get to work, I have a new appreciation of getting out in the morning and getting them ready. But whatever you decide, the only thing I will say, whatever you decide as business owners, whether to bring employees back full-time because that's best for your firm, that's okay. Part-time because you feel like you can do it, or kind of like straddle who comes in what days, or say, you know what, we can save on cost and we can work remotely. Have a plan, have a real strategic plan, write it down. Do not do it haphazardly. Make sure you're checking with the HR, make sure you're living within the compliance of the Department of Labor, because that's key. But whatever you decide, I always say, don't look back. You know, like make the decision, embrace the decision, and then go for it and say, okay, this is working. And then if it's not working, you don't have to look back, continue to look forward, but tweak it so that it does work. And I will tell you, we are here. People are here every day. People are coming, you know, but we didn't actually have to say, you need to come back to work now. Those personalities that we talked about, we saw them throughout our firm. We saw the different personalities, and some people were biting at the bit. They were almost outside the door when they felt like it was safe and they had their shots to come back in. And others, they're taking their time. But we haven't seen the workflow decrease. So I would say, whatever you decide, you know, look in your heart, make the decision, and then don't look back. You know, throw that pebble in the water, watch it float, and then just adjust to make it work for you. But what would you say in the end?
I mean, I think first off, we don't know whether this is the end. I think that's always the kind of the fear. So, you know, being prepared that if this situation happens again, your workers are ready and you're ready. And then I would agree, you know, make a decision, but also don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to allow that employee to try a week at home. And if it's not working, you can always change it, but at least give them the shot.
Yeah, I agree. Transparency, right? Transparency and trust. But as mother-daughter, we'll we check in all the time with.
Well, that's the other thing. Talk to other business owners. I mean, there's so many business owners right now trying to figure this out all together that I think just talking and saying, how are you doing it, you know, will help.
Yeah, and also share. If you come up with a good idea, I think that too often we say, oh, that's our idea. It's never your idea. You know what they say, a secret is never a secret. So make sure that you're sharing with others, because I think that also empowers you down the road. But thank you. Instead of rambling on about this, we want to enjoy and this podcast, we did not have a baby crying in the background. We were not working from home. We were in the office. So maybe we moved up a little bit. We may have to leave a little earlier. And the only negative is the traffic has picked up the last few weeks on the road as we all kind of journey back into our work environments. But thank you for joining us today. And we hope that, you know, we do this every quarter to kind of jump in and share with you some of our ideas. So we'll look forward to coming up with our new topic for the next time we talk. Thank you.
Thanks.